So Ollie has a question, and this is going to be our last question for the day. I have an Aries rising with Jupiter in the 8th house. What does that mean? Okay, clarifying question, Ollie. Do you mean that you have Jupiter in Aries as well? I just want to make sure I understand. I'll wait for you to answer. Do you have Aries in your 8th house and Aries in Jupiter? Okay, so you mean you have Aries rising conjunct Jupiter in 8th house. That's what you mean. You said yes. Beautiful. So Aries rising is a warrior because Aries is the warrior zodiac sign. This is somebody who jumps in before they think about their fears. This is someone that overall thinks of themselves as fearless, even though we all have fears. But Aries is the most brave zodiac sign. Aries is also exalted at the ego. So Aries has the biggest ego out of the entire zodiac. It is from this ego that they're able to accomplish their goals. Aries rising is somebody who's going to be very energetic, very restless. These are people that speak very loudly, and they're often perceived to be fairly aggressive even when they're not being aggressive to them. They think they're just talking normally, and other people perceive them to be loud and to be yelling. A lot of Aries rising children, when they were little, people always told them to tone it down because they were always perceived to be too loud, too aggressive, too abrasive, and just too much. As Aries rising grows up, they learn to channel this energy into productivity. So Aries rising is somebody that's really about their business, somebody that's very productive, someone that's very focused, somebody that is very active. Typically these people are very into fitness, working out, keeping their body together. They usually have a lot of different projects going on. They have huge social circles. They're very involved with a lot of different activities. That is if they're working it in the positive, okay? If they're working in the negative, they don't know how to get along with people. They're very bossy. They're very off-putting in terms of their demeanor because they come across super aggressive when it's unnecessary, and they have no awareness, no self-awareness of how they're coming across and how they're rubbing people the wrong way. An Aries that is healed and balanced understands that they are powerful. They understand that even when they're doing things gently, people interpret it to be at a higher energetic vibration than what it is. So as a result, they know how to modulate their energy to accommodate the environment. It doesn't mean they're being fake. It means they're being strategic with how they throw their energy around to not repel other people. The 8th house in astrology is the house of war. It is a house that's ruled by Scorpio. Scorpio is co-ruled by Mars. Mars is the ruler of Aries. Mars is a planet of war, of destruction, of chaos. This is why Aries needs to spend a lot of time modulating themselves, because a lot of times what Aries considers, playful banter, other people consider to be aggressive and mean-spirited, even though that's not the Aries intent. I'm a fire sign myself, so I understand Aries, but a lot of times Aries isn't curious enough about themselves to take time to understand how they're received, how they're perceived, and how their energy affects other people. A person that has Scorpio in the 8th or Aries in the 8th is someone, again, that's going to be seen as very powerful, very tough. That's somebody that you definitely want to have in your corner, that you don't want to go to war with, because these people hardly ever lose a battle that they engage in. The 8th house is a house of destruction. It's a house of war. It's also the house of transformation. It's where we go to revitalize ourselves, where we go to basically end aspects of our personalities that are no longer appropriate for our development, for the manifestation of our goals, and take up a new personality or new traits for us to be able to maneuver whatever life is bringing our way. So someone that has Aries Jupiter is particularly lucky because Jupiter is a ruler of Sagittarius, which is a fire sign. And Aries being a fire sign means that when you go to bat for someone or something, or you decide to take up a cause, a fight for something, your chances of success are really, really high. So again, you're nothing to play with when it comes to fighting to get the things that you want. So Aries in the 8th is an excellent placement because the house is the house of destruction naturally. So Aries being a Martian is beautiful there, because what makes Scorpio potent is the Martian energy that they share with Aries. And having that conjunct Jupiter means that luck comes to you when you're forceful, when you are strong, when you are confident, when you believe in yourself, when you roar a bit, when you're full of yourself. Confidence will take you much further than competence when you have Aries in the 8th. It means that when you're confident and you go for something, you're most likely to nail it. Because the beautiful thing about Aries energy is that people naturally trust your leadership. People naturally believe in you because you're confident, you're bold. And when you come to the scene with that energy, it makes everybody around you feel safe. So even when people feel scared, being in this bold energy makes them feel confident. The 8th house can also be the place of our own undoing if we don't know how to modulate our strength, because transformation is about both destruction and rebirth. And a lot of time that's what needs to happen within. So in Aries that has been drinking the narcissistic cup too much and that has been full of themselves and not really mindful of other people and having good relationship with other people, they can also experience a lot of bad luck very, very fast. So in the same way that luck comes to you quickly, luck can leave you quickly, especially if your karma is not balanced. As you know, Scorpio is a karmic zodiac sign, so the 8th house carries karmic energy, because your ability to win your battles basically revolves around you actually generally being a good person, generally making good choices, and generally trying to do what's good, not just for yourself, but for everyone. And I know it's not always that we can do that, but it does require that you kind of modulate your aggression versus your collaboration. If it's been too much aggression unnecessarily and not enough collaboration, in the same way that you win battles, you will lose them. Because Jupiter is all about expanding you, making you bigger, but working that energy in the negative where you just take and don't give back, you can just as quickly shrink back. So my best tip for Aries is to work on their emotional regulation, because when an Aries increases their self-awareness and their understanding of their emotional nature, they can make smarter decisions about how to do relationship with other people. They can pause more and take deep breaths before they say or do things to unnecessarily offend other people and cause their relationship to fray. So that's basically what I have about Aries in the 8th house, especially when it comes to doing relationships. The last tidbit I want to add before I disconnect is issues with intimacy. Aries really struggles with intimacy, even though they don't struggle with physical contact. Aries doesn't mind quick physical contact, but they mind intimacy. Someone that has Aries in the 8th house really needs to work on developing their intimacy with themselves so they can be more sensitive and vulnerable in relationship. Relationships are not about dominance. It's not about taking somebody down. It's about revealing your true, authentic self to another in a safe space. And for a lot of Aries, they will much rather hide their sensitivity under bold action, under aggression, under fighting. Like as an example, if you've hurt an Aries feelings, instead of them crying to you about it and say like, you really hurt my feelings, or just expressing that, they would rather pick a fight with you to give you back the negative energy that you gave them. An evolved Aries on the other end will actually come to you and say, hey, that thing that you did, I didn't like it, and here's why, and I don't want you to do that again. So that placement can really struggle with intimacy, and it's something that you have to work on. One good thing you can do with this placement is to put yourself in a lot of uncomfortable positions. So try to travel to places you've never been and put yourself in uncomfortable positions, because the more you do that, the more you develop intimacy with yourself. When you're in uncomfortable situations, you have to learn to trust yourself. And the more you put yourself in these situations where you're learning to trust yourself and trust life, and trust the universe, the easier it becomes for you then to trust others in relationship, because the intimacy we give is the intimacy we have. And a person who does not feel safe with themselves and does not trust themselves cannot trust anybody in relationship. They can be in relationship, but it doesn't mean they can feel safe in that partnership. So Aries 8th house conjunct Jupiter needs to really work on expanding their worldview, expanding their emotional lenses, so they can develop some emotional intelligence about themselves, develop some emotional, vulnerability, so that they can build that intimacy, which they then need to be able to navigate a relationship with another. So that's what I would say in terms of Aries 8th house Jupiter. So thank you so much for that beautiful question. And thank you for my roses, Care Bear. Thank you, Amberly, for being here. Ollie said you're so on point. Thank you. I will be following you. Thank you, Ollie, for being here. And for those of you who enjoyed this reading and would like your own, link in bio to schedule your personal reading with me at intuitivehealing.com. Well, Aries Venus are people who don't really do well in long-term relationship. Aries Venus is looking for a high passion love affair that feels very carnal, very adventurous, very fast-paced, very exciting, very much so on top of the world. Aries Venus wants to feel all the excitement very, very fast, and after they've reached the peak of that mountain, there is a certain boredom that sets in for them with the idea of partnership. They don't really enjoy partnership, when it comes to like the routine and mundane aspect of it. Aries Venus likes partnership that is short-term, full of excitement, of passion, of boldness, of daring energy, of like things they've never done before. They go quickly from stranger to, oh my God, you're my soulmate. So they quickly migrate from that point of contact to full all in, all excitement, ready to see all of eternity with you. But just as quickly as they dive into it, they get bored. It gets to be not as exciting. It gets to be not as interesting. It gets to be a little bit predictable. And when the partnership starts to feel boring and predictable, Aries Venus tends to check out. They tend to get disinterested. And it doesn't mean that, you're a bad person. It's just they require that you keep their attention. And obviously, it's easier to keep their attention in the beginning, because in the beginning, they don't know a lot about you. You don't know a lot about them. There's a lot to discover here. So everything is naturally exciting. However, once you get into the relationship, the excitement has to be created. It has to be built. It has to be anticipated. It has to be planned ahead of time. And Aries Venus naturally do not find that interesting. Contrast that to a Capricorn Venus. A Capricorn Venus is somebody that wants a love story that is built slowly over time. The routine of it is what they find exciting. The predictability aspect of it is what they like. They want it to be built slowly and surely, and they're not interested in anything quick, anything fast. They're very hard to gaslight in terms of like getting them super excited about diving into a relationship. They like things to be a little bit on the dry side, so they can make sure that this person is really who they want, and really who they want to be with long term. So Capricorn is over there doing their homework and double checking their answers, and Aries is over there guessing the answers and just vibing. So as you can see, these two are very different. So getting into a relationship, if you're an Aries Venus with a Capricorn Venus, is going to be a bit challenging, because naturally you have different disposition. The other thing is Capricorn is an earth sign. Earth signs are traditionally more compatible with water sign, and Aries is a fire sign. fire and earth are not naturally compatible. Can they learn to live peacefully together? Absolutely. But it would require some work on their part, because together the energy between them creates tension. The energy doesn't flow effortlessly. It requires an emotional investment to be able to see where each of them is coming from, so they're best able to support each other and care for one another in that way. And commitment also means something very different to the two of them. You know, Capricorn is a tad bit more traditional, while Aries is a lot more outgoing and progressive with their worldview. So from a pace perspective, they're very different as well. The other thing is they're both cardinal signs. Cardinal signs typically like to be in control in their relationships. They like to have a leadership position. So Aries and Capricorn are both going to be wanting to take control of the relationship and wanting to lead the way. And unfortunately, you know, in relationships, we can't have two chiefs. You know, we can only have one at a time, you know, taking charge. And Aries is going to want to use their dominance to lead the way, because Aries does everything with aggression. And Capricorn is going to be resistant to that, because Capricorn is very interested in decorum. You know, how things look is very important to Capricorn, how things are done, because they're very meticulous, being ruled by Saturn. The process of it is very interesting to them, while Aries is very interested in the outcome. Hi, Loretta. Thanks for being here. So we've talked about how Earth and Fire are not necessarily compatible, how Cardinal and Cardinal are not necessarily compatible. Capricorn is a feminine sign, while Aries is a masculine sign. Those two can certainly learn to work together with their energy in terms of gender. But Capricorn is a feminine sign that presents like a masculine sign. So, you know, depending on how it goes, this could bring aggression out in both of them, or they could complement each other well. You know, the feminine and the masculine work really well together. Now, the last tidbit about this relationship is the fact that their vision of success also looks different. For Capricorn, it's about longevity and it's about building a stable relationship over time. And for Aries, it's about the excitement. Like, how amazing does it feel? And how amazing is it? How fun is it? How, like, childlike does this experience make me feel? And for Aries, they get all of it on the front end, and Capricorn gets all of it on the back end in terms of their reward. So as you can see, these two would have a difficult time coming into partnership and deciding, you know, what works for them and what doesn't. So the more you invest in loving yourself, the easier it's going to be for you to find your person, because the more clear you are about what you want, who you are, what you're willing to put up with, what you're not willing to put up with. So let's say you're an Aries rising. If you were to meet a Capricorn rising, you will right away let it be known, like, what you're into and what you're not into. You're not going to be bashful. You're not going to be playing footsies. You're not going to be dancing around the bush. You're going to let them know directly and clearly who you are, what you want, what you're willing to put up with, what you're not. Same with a Capricorn Venus. So it's important to invest in self-love, because self-love is where we clarify what we are, what we believe we deserve. And once we have an understanding of that, then we can come out and claim it. And when suitors come along, you know, if people don't meet your criteria, you discard them and move on to the next person, as opposed to wasting your time trying to change people, trying to fix people, trying to make people into what you want. You know, all of these games that we play when we're not fully confident in ourselves. You know, when we love ourselves and we're confident in ourselves, we know what we deserve, we know what we're willing to put up with, and we know what we're not willing to put up with. We don't spend our time or waste our lives trying to change grown adults. Instead, we focus on the adults that vibe with us, and the ones that don't, we leave behind. That is at the root of like why it's important to really invest in knowing yourself, loving yourself, and celebrating yourself. So that's pretty much it. That's what I would say in terms of the connection between that and understanding your Venus and what it is that your Venus requires in order to feel content, satisfied, fulfilled and happy in a relationship. If you're looking to find a love interest, it's always a good idea to start loving yourself more. In my opinion, love comes to you whenever you're ready for it. And you know that you're ready for it when your whole world is about the things that you love and is about you. When you make your world about you and the things that you love, you will naturally find other people who love the things that you love on your path. And the point of the connection is not going to be about anything other than joining together to love the things that you naturally love together. So I don't recommend that women make finding a love interest the focus of their lives, because many of us have been brainwashed into believing that our identity is contingent upon having a spouse, in most cases having a husband, having a family. Many of us were kind of brainwashed into that way of thinking. I recommend that women focus on the things that make them happy, that they're focused on their career, they're focused on their hobbies, and they invest in self-care. Because when a woman is busy loving herself, meaning taking up projects that she likes, working out, eating healthy, going to shows, whatever it is you're into, whether it's live shows or you like to go to comedy shows or you like to play volleyball or you like traveling, you like to go hiking. When women are busy doing the things that bring them their greatest joy, it lights up something inside of them. Their divine feminine energy awakens, because that spirit awakens when they're not hustling and struggling and in survival mode. So the more you're busy investing in yourself by engaging in activity that you love, the easier the chances are that you will meet somebody who loves what you love. That way, at that point, a love relationship is no longer about sacrificing yourself for the sake of a mate, and it's more about finding a partner that's into what you're into and that you can enjoy life together. So that's what I would recommend. Get invested in loving yourself more deeply. Get invested in activities that you love, and make yourself a priority, because honestly, love comes when you're least looking for it, like the real thing. When you're looking for it because of the desperation, you're more inclined to be tricked into a story that isn't truly beneficial for you. But when you're focused on yourself and you make your life your priority, you're going to manifest you. So what you will manifest is somebody that reflects your level of love back to yourself. And that's why it's so important to love on yourself and to invest in self-love, because the quality of the love that you can manifest is contingent upon the quality of love that you have for yourself. I hope that was helpful. Now, you added in my chart. So if you want me to tell you what zodiac signs are ideal for you, then you can ask me specifically about your signs and I will be able to answer that, okay? All right, so Callie added, I heard in the chart that you can see a certain sign or the first timing. There is a soulmate asteroid in the chart. Generally, you will also look at your Venus, your moon. You will look at your big six. But what's more important are the aspects in your chart and how those play into the aspect of your partner. It's sad to say, but not everybody's astrology chart is positive for love connections in terms of romance. Not everybody gets to have, success with romance in astrology, and it doesn't necessarily mean something bad. It's just everyone has a different journey. So if you want a full reading of your love natal presentation, you can schedule a reading with me, link in bio, to do that, and we can talk in details about what your chart looks like for love and who would be suited for you in terms of chemistry. Callie said perfect. Thank you. You're very welcome, Callie. Thank you for asking. Callie said, I totally agree. I've been working on myself for the past 4 years, not quite ready. Good for you. I think it's really important to invest in yourself and your self-love, because it sets the perfect stage for you to have everything that you want, because everything that you want wants you. So the more you want what's good for you, the more you manifest what's good for you. I want to remind you that the planet of love in astrology is Venus, okay? Venus is a planet of love. Venus is a planet of abundance. When you're looking to see who's compatible with you, it's really important to know your Venus and know their Venus, because Venus essentially determines your love landscape, if you want to think about it that way. Venus basically tells you what you find loving, what you find to be, how you define abundance, what you find to be attractive, and what your vision of an ideal love story looks like. So your Venus basically creates a foundation upon which you interpret love and a love story. So knowing your Venus sign is a really good way to ensure that you and that person are going to be able to collaborate on a love story that feels mutually satisfactory. And it's happening not necessarily on a psychological level. It's not like, oh, I want good love, or I want somebody that loves me, or I want a good relationship. It's happening at an energetic level, because a person that really wants a good relationship vibrates at a certain frequency. There's certain things they will or will not entertain based on their standards. So the more your standards go up, the more you clarify what you're cool with and what you're not cool with. When your standards are low, you're cool with everything. You're open to everything. When you raise your standards, you have a lot more no's than yeses in terms of what you want. And the more clear you get about your no's, specifically your no's, the easier it is for your yeses to come in, because you're quickly denying your engagement into situations, relationships that are not appropriate for you, that don't feel good, and that are not a good fit. Now, Glow is asking, what does it mean to have a Sagittarius and a Capricorn stellium? It means you have 3 or more placements that are in that zodiac sign. That's what it means. And those placements, at least 2 of them need to be in your personal planets. And your personal planets are going to be what we call your big 6. So that would be your rising sign, your sun, your moon, your Mercury, your Venus, or your Mars. Those are personal to you, because there are planets that are not shared by the populace. There are other placements in your natal chart that are shared by the populace, meaning that there are generational planets. Examples of generational planets are Pluto, Saturn, Uranus, and Jupiter. Those are planets that a collective, a group of people share depending on when they're born. However, your big 6 are specific to you and when you're born. So look to see if you have 3 or more placements in that sign, with 2 of them being in your big 6. That is essentially what creates a stellium. So that was a good question. Who has the next astrology question? Don't be shy. So what other questions do you guys have about astrology that I can answer for you? This is your time to get your questions answered for free. If you are more comfortable talking in private, link in bio to schedule your astrology reading with me. I also want to let you know that I have a lot of free content available for you on YouTube. I have a love channel on YouTube called Styled Under Libra, where I talk about astrology love. You can go and check that out, Astrology and Love, Styled Under Libra. I also have a health and wellness channel where I talk about holistic health, as well as, mental health, physical health, emotional well-being, emotional intelligence. That's under styled, like styling, Styled Under Virgo. I also have a horoscope channel where I do horoscope predictions every couple of weeks when we have a lunar movement, whether it's a new moon or a full moon. and that channel is called the Aquarius Podcast. It goes along with a podcast that I started on Spotify, where every 2 weeks I give you your astrology horoscope. And lastly, my main YouTube channel, Intuitive Healing with an N, where you get all of your Astrology 101 information. You can go there to get access to a lot of astrology information for free. I have over 1,000 videos on there, probably close to 1,500, if not more. Just go ahead, if you have a specific topic in mind you're curious about, you can go ahead and search in the search bar on YouTube for that topic, and you will see all the videos about that. As an example, if you're interested in like retrograde, what does it mean when a planet is retrograde? You can search for retrograde and see what comes up. So take advantage of all these resources, link in bio to do that. I also have a manifestation group if you want me to give you personalized predictions for your zodiac sign every 2 weeks based on your astrology natal chart. You can sign up for my Patreon, and I would do that for you every 2 weeks. So these are all the services that I offer. And as far as my readings, because I have a background in mental health, I worked in mental health for 20 years before becoming an astrologer. A lot of my readings are focused on a psychological take on astrology. I'm able to decipher patterns of behavior very easily because of my training. I'm very interested in karmic history as well, so I like talking about that. And also manifestation. Those are kind of my main areas of focus. But obviously, whatever it is that you're seeking the astrology reading for, I'm available to talk about that. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I'll catch you on live next time. Au revoir! You can book your astrology reading at intuitivehealing.com. You can also watch videos at Intuitive Healing here on YouTube for Astrology 101 content. Listen to the Aquarius podcast on Spotify, as well as here on YouTube for your horoscope. If you're interested in astrology and love connections, you can visit at Styled Under Libra. And of course, for health and wellness and holistic healing, visit at Styled Under Virgo for all of your astrology content. Thanks so much for watching.